Hi, this is Mike Brown, owner of Death Wish Coffee Company. Welcome to Fueled by Deathcast.
I love Jeff, but sweet and high. Whoop, Mr. Mokrama,
Death Wish Coffee presents Fueled by Deathcast, the world's strongest podcast. With your hosts, the incredible Jeff and the amazing D-Man.
Welcome, everybody, to Fueled by Deathcast. As always, it never changes. I am the incredible Jeff.
It changes sometimes for me. Sometimes I'm hot, sometimes I'm cold. But today I am the amazing D-Man.
All right, that's good. It's episode 28.
Yay!
As always, thank you to Brock Powell, brockfox.com. Without him, our podcast wouldn't sound as cool at all.
Yeah, no. He's the sole reason why anybody listens to us.
It is the truth.
It has nothing to do with the Death Wish Coffee Company.
And you can go listen to him and his friends do their podcast, Unpop Podcast. It's one of our favorites. They make fun of movies, and they're really good at it. Also, shout out to our friend Dave Solo and Walker Nation, and all the other podcasts that he's a part of, which is like a billion.
And pretty soon we'll be fueling him through the podcast world as well.
Yes, so that's very good. And finally, friends of the show, just starting out as their podcast, but they've got a couple episodes up now. You can go check them out over on Facebook and SoundCloud. Unwarranted Advice. Love those guys over there. And, always look for new podcasts. We love them.
Secret code unlocked. Discount of death.
We're giving you a good one this week.
Oh, it's really good.
We're going to discount the cold brew. We're going to throw a 20% discount on the son of a bitch.
20% off the cold brew.
It's real. So if you type in UFC. That's it. You will get 20% off the cold brew. If you haven't tried it, this is your chance to try it now. Mm-hmm. And that's $5 off.
Yeah.
That's no joke.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, stock up.
So the reason why it's UFC is because we have Liz Carmouche on this week.
Yes.
How
I can't
cool
wait to talk
is
to her
that?
there. It's really cool. Really cool.
Future UFC flyweight champion.
We'll get there. We have a lot of fun talking to her, and we talked to her about some new developments in UFC that is really exciting. But
in honor of her, if you type in UFC on your discount code area as you check out, you will get 20% off your cold brew.
Science!
So, I hate to say it, but we're going to space. We've spent some time, on ground the last couple episodes.
Yeah, I feel like you've been sheltering me, but now I just wasn't prepared for this. And
so we're going back to space, and the big question on everybody's lips in NASA
how do I breathe in space?
is concerning this planet right here, Mars. Now, if you don't know, we have been sending probes to Mars for many, many years. In fact, Curiosity is still roving around up there. See what I did? And and sending back lots of cool information from its discoveries up there. But we're sending another rover, and we're launching it in 2020. And it's to the point of, where are we going to make this thing land? Because Mars is a big planet, and Curiosity's doing pretty good where it's at right now, but there's so much more of the planet to explore. And so in July of 2020, this is going to take off, and it's going to, have a short trip to Mars, and its main mission is the same as all of the missions that we've had, bringing stuff.
Find aliens.
Basically. Its overall goal is to figure out if the planet could support habitable life in the future, and conversely, if it had habitable life in the past. And we have found traces of water, we have found, clay deposits, so it is looking very promising. But the other side of that coin is, can we actually go to Mars someday in the future, terraform it, and live there? Like science fiction movies have shown us multiple times.
Yeah, I've watched those movies. It doesn't look good.
But researchers at Brown University actually offer up the region called Syrtis Major as the potential landing site. And here's a photo of it if you're watching us on YouTube. The area is known as a dark spot, basically because of all the basaltic volcanic rock that's in the region. And it's in between the Acidius Impact Basin and the Syrtis volcano. Now, to you and I, that doesn't really mean much, but to a geologist, that is basically made this area a basically a snapshot of a huge portion of the history of Mars without ever having to drill. We could send a rover there and it could just roll around and actually roll through different eras of Mars's history without having to go too far underground.
It's going to find another rover.
It might. But each of these, each of these is a characteristic of a different watery environments. That's the different eras that it can go through. For instance, like I said before, clay minerals are hard to come by without water, yet we're starting to find them. And some of the oldest deposits in this region feature smectite, which is actually these clay deposits. There's other ones called olivine and kaolinite. They're different other types of minerals formed by the presence of water. So scientists argue that a mission to this area would be like driving through the history of Mars. It could offer insight to the potential life during Mars's transition from the bombardments of the asteroid belt early on in its life to what we actually even see it as to now. The thing is we don't even want to just find out if there was habitable life on Mars. We want to know what happened.
Yeah.
Because we know that Earth, at least for what we consider it, and this is actually the term that they use in NASA, it's called the Goldilocks zone.
Yeah.
That it's not too hot, not too cold, and we are able to sustain water and atmosphere and life on our planet. But the thought is that way back when, millions, billions years ago, the Goldilocks zone might have been Mars.
Yeah, and if it started to move out of that Goldilocks zone, then we would start to need to look for another planet to live on, which might be Mars now.
Right.
And this is why this shit freaks me out.
Right. And if you go on over to the Discovery Channel, they have an incredible mockumentary/documentary called Mars.
Oh, it's so good.
And I have a screenshot of it up here too. But yes, it's so good. It's fake. It's about in 2030 when we send our first humans to go and try and terraform Mars.
Yeah, but they break down the science of what that would take, and they show you what that would look like.
Yeah.
And it's scary, Jeff.
And what's really neat is in the facade of the fiction that they're creating, and the production value is incredible on it.
Yeah.
They are cutting back to the past because, like I said, it's 2030. So they cut back to 2017 and 2016 and talk to real people like Neil deGrasse Tyson and Elon Musk and these people who are actively trying to get us to Mars right now, and they're telling you the processes that we're going through. And then Discovery made this show to kind of be like, well, if we actually took those practices and made them a reality, maybe this is what it would look like.
Yeah, it's amazing. Give it a shot. At least the first 3 episodes are just teeth-grinding, white-knuckle awesome.
Yeah. So, 2020 is fast approaching. It's only a couple years away. So we really have to decide pretty soon where we're going to send this next rover and hopefully get. One of the coolest things about this rover, finally, just to kind of bookend this, what the things that it's going to be doing is it's going to be testing some of those theories about how to create an atmosphere on, let's say like a biodome kind of thing. And it's going to have some of these processes in the rover, and it's actually going to conduct those experiments right on Mars.
Oh, cool.
So it's going to be pretty neat.
Wow, that's neat stuff, man.
What fuels you?
So this week, like we said, we get to talk to Liz Carmouche, an incredibly powerful fighter. Literally, her nickname is Girl Illa. Gorilla, yeah.
It's Gorilla, Jeff.
And and we get to why that is. But she has some really
She's
cool...
a beast. She's so driven. She's so driven. And, there's nothing that can stop this girl.
One of the things she says is the only one in this life who can say you can't do something is you. That's it.
Yeah.
Anyone else can tell you can't do it, and you can go out there and prove them wrong.
I almost feel like when somebody tells me I can't do something is when I finally decide I can do it.
Right. There is nothing in this life that should hold you back, and I thought that was a great what fuels you for this week and for every week, honestly. Nothing should ever hold you back. You should look at any obstacle in your life and don't, like we've said a million times, don't look at it as a win or fail. It's a win or learn, and learn how to get past that obstacle.
Yeah, determination wouldn't be determination if you got it on the first try.
Right.
Determination means that you keep on going at it. You need the will and determination to finally get that thing you actually want, and you need it to be steady and present all the time.
Totally. And again, the only person who's ever going to say you can't and is right is you. Because if you tell yourself that and you believe it, then you're never going to make it past.
And excuses are only made by people who have already failed.
Truth.
You know?
So
get rid of those excuses that you're building up now. You're wasting up time.
Right. There is nothing that can hold you back.
Community shout out.
So this week, community shout out. I wanted to shout him out for a little bit, actually. Sean Chai.
We love you, dude.
Oh my God. Constantly posting. In fact, I'm not, you and I enjoy a fine cigar from time to time, a couple a year, but man, the pictures he posts with like, a cool Deneen mug and like the cigar, it's like every time you post a picture, Sean, I'm like, I want a cigar right now. Like, it's really good. And like, and not only that, again, I know I sound like a broken record, but you're such a positive dude, always posting, helping out people and, sharing other people's posts, sharing stuff about the podcast, the company. And Sean and his wife Courtney had the coolest wedding ever. It was all Star Wars themes. Like I wanted to be,
mugs.
And they got the Deneen mugs.
Oh
it's
my
like,
God, it's so cool. And also, you might not know this, Jeff, but he's part of the Death Wish Subaru Club.
I didn't know there was such a thing.
That's because you don't have a Subaru, Jeff.
Apparently, you have to have a Subaru. And who do I know who has a Subaru?
I don't know.
It must be D-Man, because you know about this club.
I am in this club, Jeff.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, mugs up, community shout out, Sean Chai. This week, I wanted to bring a little demo to the podcast, and we put out a blog post recently about our affogato recipe.
Yeah.
And, delicious.
Dude, it's so good. I got addicted to this last year when we first got the this Nespresso machine in here. Because, we started developing our Nespresso pods back then, started looking at options and what we're actually trying to make. Well, as soon as we got this thing in, I started making an affogato every day because it got hot in that little warehouse we were stuffed in last year.
Yeah.
There's like 12 of us in that tiny little room. So yeah, it got a little mucid in there, but this is a great relief from the summer. So you get your delicious hot coffee, but you get it chilled over some delicious like gelato, or what I'm going to use here because I'm going to drink this, and I happen to be a little dairy sensitive.
Right.
So I'm using some cashew milk based ice cream here.
But it's like special. It's like snickerdoodle. So it's got a little bit of extra in there. But
Yeah.
basically, affogato is Italian for drowned, and that's exactly what he's doing. Is you're taking a couple, like two small scoops of ice cream or gelato. And then you're going to either take a Nespresso pod, a little bit of espresso, or 3 tablespoons of hot coffee.
Here we go. Here's the magic. You ready?
Yep. And you're going to hear this machine. It sounds like a lawnmower.
Oh, it shut off on me.
So it'll take a second.
Yeah, it's got to warm up now.
But you scoop the ice cream into the cup, and then you either pour the hot espresso right over it, or you just brew up your little coffee and you pour that over it as well.
We're going to put a little splash of Death Wish vodka.
Yeah.
Too.
Actually, there are a lot of variations, and they include adding a little amaretto
Okay, here
or
we go.
vodka.
There's the magic sound.
There's that sound.
Man.
But it's going to break down you're going to experiment with about 1 ounce of espresso for every scoop of ice cream, because the hot coffee is going to break down the ice cream a little bit, but you don't want it to turn into just soup. You want it to keep a little bit of the body. And like you said, some of these variations do add liquor to it, so we're going to take our awesome Albany Distilling Death Wish coffee vodka and pour some into that out of our new little decanter.
It says a splash, but
And then, if you want to get fancy, you can take some coffee beans and crush them up and garnish the top of it with those. But this is a staple in Italy, and they consider it a dessert. A lot of Americans started selling this, and a lot of the Western world started selling this as like a dessert beverage. So they've added berries and honeycomb and biscotti and coconut to it to really kind of like jack up the price and make it more of like this thing.
I did it again, Jeff.
But yeah, it's gorgeous. It's really refreshing. You get that little bit of coffee. You get that little bit of your favorite ice cream in there. And like I said, with yours, even though you're not getting the dairy, you got a little snickerdoodle in there. So it's pretty good. How do you feel?
Oh, that's a splash of Death Wish vodka.
A little heavy-handed on the vodka, but that's okay.
Oh, it's good though. Oh, it's so good for the summer. Woo!
And if you want to read this recipe again, just head on over to our blog and check out our affogato recipe there, and it details everything that we just showed you.
The Death Wish Death List.
I'll give you something to die for, Jeff.
Oh, yeah?
It's this affogato right
Yeah.
now.
Well, we're not going to go far. This week we lost an Italian painter, actually, Trento Longaretti. He was 100 years old. And he studied at the famed Brera Academy in the 30s under such renowned artists as Aldo Capri and Pompeo Bora. He was actually just on the fringes of the Coronet movement, and that was the movement that was happening in Italy at the time when the Italian fascist movement was happening and a lot of artists were getting stifled. So this was like the underground revolutionary kind of artistic movement that was coming up.
Why is it suppression makes the best art?
I know. He was drafted into the Italian army in 1939, and he ended up serving until the end of the war in 1945. But what's crazy is he was still painting and exhibiting from the front lines. He would actually paint on canvas, and then in a couple of the cities that he would go to, especially in France, he actually threw exhibits. The war completely changed his artistic vision, and he adopted a very anti-war stance and opposition to violence as a result of his service, which it features predominantly in his works. He depicted a lot of mothers opposing violence. And humility was a theme throughout a lot of his later work, including the depiction of characters such as beggars, vagrants, and vagabonds, and themes such as loneliness and abandonment and exile.
Wow.
His oil paintings have been compared to the style of that of Paul Cézanne, very heavy brushstrokes. And he maintained studios and continued to paint and show his work even into his final year when he turned 100. He stated that painting was an elixir for his long life.
Huh.
And his work can be found in museums all across Europe and has been shown in galleries all over the world, and some of it still resides in the archives of the Vatican. So, because some of his most famous work is actually sacred works, and one of those is the Stations of the Cross, which was 14 mosaics that exist on the grounds of the Church of San Salvatore. And also this week, I'm sure you heard, we lost Batman. Adam West, he was 88 years old. Obviously widely known for his portrayal of Batman in the campy 60s television show and the subsequent movie, the feature film that came from that as well, him and Burt Ward playing his Robin. He began acting, though, in the 50s, and in the 60s he appeared in films like Geronimo, Robinson Crusoe on Mars, and even in the Three Stooges, The Outlaws is Coming. And he appeared on tons of TV shows at that time too, like Laramie and Outer Limits and Perry Mason, and he was actually offered the role of James Bond for Diamonds Are Forever.
He could have done it, man.
He turned it down because he said specifically that he felt that character always needed to be British.
Oh shit.
And I think he was right because they went with Sean Connery instead. So.
Really?
I mean...
That's crazy.
Yeah,
It's like,
so...
Nah, I don't need your money.
Unfortunately, after Batman ended, he was severely typecast and had a real rough go of it for about a decade, trying to get roles.
He got into a lot of voice acting afterwards, though.
He did do some television before that. He did bit parts on Bewitched, Laverne and Shirley, Bonanza. His list of credits is so huge. But you're right. Later in life, he started to do a lot of voice acting, and not only did he reprise being Batman in a lot of the animated stuff that DC would put out, including just last year, he came out with the Return of the Caped Crusaders, again with Burt Ward, where they actually played their 60s counterparts, which I thought was pretty fun. But he had huge roles on The Fairly Odd Parents, on SpongeBob SquarePants, and of course, as Mayor Adam West on Family Guy.
So good.
And he will be obviously sorely missed by all because what an incredible talent. And all the stuff he left us will be there forever, though. So that's good.
He just seems so lighthearted.
Yeah.
So it is sad to see him go, but rest in peace, Mr. West.
Rest in peace, old chum. So Death wish you a happy birthday, though, this week. Thursday, the day this comes out, June 15th. One of my favorite actors, Neil Patrick Harris, Doogie Howser himself.
Doogie Howser.
He's so funny. He's going to be 44. On Friday, June 16th, Luella Bartley, she is an up-and-coming fashion designer. She actually was the editor of British Vogue magazine for a while. She's going to be 43. On Saturday, June 17th, Kendrick Lamar, he's pretty incredible. He's going to be turning 30. So young for all the work he's already put out. Sunday, June 18th, the legendary Paul McCartney is going to turn 75 years old. And finally, on Tuesday, June 20th, one of our favorite singers,
seriously,
Chino Moreno, from the Deftones.
Yeah,
he's going to be 44.
Talk about a
years
dude
old.
who's been in it for so long.
The
Deftones have been at it for a long time.
Deftones broke the same time that whole the new hardcore phase kind of happened in the mid '90s with Korn and the Deftones. And
that's when they broke, but they were together even before that.
Yeah.
If you consider that, what's that? Over 20 years now.
Totally.
Way over 20 years.
Yeah.
I mean, you're looking at like 30 years of dudes who've been working. Marriages don't last that long, man. That is crazy.
Yeah.
So good for Chino Moreno.
Yeah. So happy birthday to all of them. And as always, we're gonna take a short break and give you this week's update with some awesome Death Wish news. We do all
D-Man's Death Wish Update. Brought to you by Death Wish Coffee.
We got caught dancing.
We got caught dancing.
We're okay. We're okay now. So we got some things going on.
Yeah. Tell me.
Okay, so this is really cool.
Okay.
On Thursday, $2 of every purchase will be going to Claire'sPlaceFoundation.org. Now, we've been talking about this a long time.
Yes.
We had Claire on the podcast.
Yes, episode 26.
We recently had Ricky Rackman come to town.
Yep,
and
talked to him about Claire, too.
You'll hear his interview come out soon. But this is great. It's so great to have the company that I love donate to something that, we believe in. This is amazing charity that provides money to families who are struggling with cystic fibrosis.
Totally. And it couldn't be a better cause. And like you said, every single purchase today, June 15th, $2 of that purchase will go towards that foundation.
So yesterday was Flag Day.
Yeah.
So if you haven't seen in our social push already that with every purchase, you'll be getting one of our new pennants, one of our new flags. And damn, they look cool. A little skeleton hand holding a mug. It's going to be cool. So we're going to be giving those away until they're gone. We don't have that many because they're handmade by Oxford Pen, and we can only have, it's kind of like working with Deneen mugs all over again. You guys are crazy. We can't provide enough for our awesome fans, but we are trying. So we will give away everything that we have until they're gone.
And I think I got to just say, it was designed by a guy we all know.
Something about a dragon.
Yes. Thomas Dragonetti designed this again. So, I mean, beef up your Thomas Dragonetti collection by getting this.
Every time we come in here to podcast, his ears are ringing until they bleed.
Totally.
What else we got?
Well, I want to just say, I've been saying this a lot every single week, and just keep following, grind it out. We've been releasing all sorts of new mini docs. In fact, my new favorite one just came out with Tyrone, the boxer. And, we've got Spotify playlists. We've got some really cool blog posts. And it's all over our social media. All you got to do is search the hashtag grind it out. And there's a lot of fun to be had there.
And hey, if you're grinding it out, you use the hashtag grinding out.
Right.
Because this is what it's about, man.
Yes, exactly. You can join in the fun. All you got to do is use the hashtag. And we did talk about this at the top of the show. I just want to announce it again. This is the perfect time of year for our cold brew. We created a cold brew coffee because, there's just times, especially, and we say the time of the year because we're from upstate New York. But I know there's lots of you people who actually live in beautiful weather all year round, and hot coffee might not be what you're grabbing for all the time.
Yeah.
And I can't say enough good stuff about this new batch of cold brew, and we just happen to have a discount for it this week too. So, there's no better reason to enjoy our Nitro cold brew.
It's UFC. Use the discount code UFC.
There it is. And finally,
oh man, July, dude.
July
is going to be crazy.
We see a lot on our social media and on our various fan pages about the company. People always wanting to know more about our products, more about, when things are coming out, when new stuff's going to happen, what new stuff's going to happen. And we try to be as up to date as possible as we can on the podcast. And we're telling you now, get ready for July. July is so full of stuff. You'd think it was Christmas. It's crazy the amount of stuff we're going to release, and a lot of it's new and a lot of it's really cool. And so just, start squirreling away some money now because you got a couple weeks before July, and that way, as soon as July hits, you'll be ready for all of those awesome.
And if you need to pilfer money off of grandma, just start funneling little bits of it away now instead of stealing it all at once.
It's a good idea.
Welcome back to the show.
So this week, I know you were super excited to talk to Liz.
Yeah, I got a little giddy. I won't lie. I'm a huge fan. I knew about Liz before the UFC. I'm a big fan of women's UFC or women's mixed martial arts fighting. And I was watching her before that. And when they announced that the first women's fight in the UFC would be Ronda Rousey versus Liz Carmouche, I was like, oh, damn.
Yeah.
Here comes a barn burner.
Yeah.
And if you didn't see this fight, go find it.
Yeah, go find it. It's up on YouTube.
She came so close to choking her out.
And we get to talk to her about that. We also talk to her about getting to fight at Madison Square Garden, which has got to be the hugest stage ever to have a fight in. And also all sorts of stuff, including some brand new news affecting women's UFC fighting.
Yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about it right now, but we're going to get a 125 division, and I'm telling you right now, Liz Carmouche is going to be the champion of
Liz
that division.
Carmouche will dominate that division, and we're saying it right here that we're calling it. When that division actually goes live and UFC is like, yep, that's happening, because they're basically saying it.
And Jeff, you wrote a blog about this,
yep,
right? So
yep.
if you want to find out more, but we make a great comparison. If you don't know, there's a fighter named Demetrius Johnson
Yeah.
who fought at 135. He's too small for 135.
Yes.
But he was always fighting the champion and just barely losing, and it's like, come on. And then finally, when they opened the 125 division, this guy has ruled it since. Liz Carmouche will do that.
Yes, she will. She'll become the champion, and she'll be the champion until she retires from fighting.
Yeah.
We're calling it right now. But beyond all that, we have an incredible conversation with her. So mugs up for Liz Carmouche.
Cheers.
The Fueled by Death guest.
Beginning of your MMA career, can you talk a little bit about how you got into mixed martial arts and maybe a little bit about what your first fight was like?
Yeah, absolutely. So I got into MMA just, in the Marine Corps doing the basic workouts. I was lifting, I was running, and I was absolutely bored out of my mind. I was looking for something that was really going to push me and engage me, not just physically, but mentally, and challenge me. A few people suggested checking out MMA. Honestly, I saw a fight on television and thought it was the most horrific, disgusting thing I'd ever seen. It was a super gory fight. I couldn't believe that people thought this was entertainment.
Do you remember what fight it was?
No, and I've tried to remember since then just because it was so long ago. I don't know who it was. It was just that somebody got cut open and the fight continued because it was on the top of the head.
Yeah.
But for me, like, this person's bleeding all over the place, and that's not in. Yeah. And once I started getting into the workouts, I was like, oh wow, this is pretty awesome. The first day I went into sparring, broke my nose and loved it, and I was hooked. So go figure, right? Like, I'm all bloody all over the place, and that was completely okay. My first fight, I fought against a woman that she weighed in at 165, and I weighed in at, it was supposed to be 135. And my coach came out and he's like, hey, unfortunately we're not able to find an opponent at that weight, so you're going to need to go up in weight. I was like, I don't even know what that means. It's a few days away. So I weighed in with jeans, a chain walled on, eating food, fully clothed, shoes at 142.
Oh my
She weighed in
God.
and sucked up. She weighed in and sucked up at 165, so she's probably like maybe 175 day up. I was still 142.
Whoa.
But I was like, hey, I want to fight. That's all I care about. I don't care who the person is, what day it is, where we're at. I just want to fight. That's the most important thing to me. Ended up succeeding. I won in the second round via armbar and came out of it, and I just knew that that's what I wanted to do. It didn't matter who they placed in front of me, that I was going to do it. I just wanted to fight, and that challenge was most accepting and fulfilling thing for me.
Where do you think you got, like, it sounds like you're a very bold and really you just don't sound like you get too nervous doing this. Where do you think you got that kind of drive from?
I think it just comes from my family. I mean, it's even something where they say as a child I was like that, so they're not quite sure. But I was just always told that there's nothing in life that can hold you back. There's no such thing as can't. And that mentality has led everything that I do. I mean, my success for everything. The only person that can tell me I can't do something in life is myself, that I'm capable of anything. And I really do believe that.
That's awesome. Let's go even farther back. You were born in Louisiana, but you grew up in Okinawa. What was that like?
Oh, that's home. I mean, I was there for 17 years. And everything I know, the culture that I grew up in, everything that I recognize as being like holidays and traditions and stuff, it's all the Okinawan culture. The American culture is still something that I've adapted to, and I'm getting to know all the different holidays, different routines, driving on the other side of the road, all the different customs from things like it's not acceptable to pick up your bowl and drink up all the last liquids out of it. Like in the States, that's not something you do at a public restaurant.
Right.
So there's just little things like words that I only knew in Japanese that I had to learn in English that I didn't even know. And that island lifestyle is much more laid back and a different pace, and here it's not the same. But it's been fun because through the military, I was able to see all different cultures and travel to different states and different places that I may not have been able to do had it not been for that.
And you said that you picked up fighting pretty much after you left the Marines. So you didn't, you weren't interested in martial arts either as a kid in Okinawa or while you were in the Marines?
I was in both. Yeah, I did some karate as a child, but I had the attention span of a gnat. And one day I wanted to do karate, the next day I wanted to be a stunt double, the next day a surgeon, and soccer and football and everything. So I dibble-dabbled in taekwondo and kempo and Okinawan karate and aikido. I was all over the place, but it'd be for a month at a time, and then something shiny would distract me, and I'd decide to go play tackle football or something.
Yeah.
So as a child, I didn't understand the opportunities that I had available for me, and I just wanted to try everything out, and everything just seemed interesting, so I just went with that. And then the Marine Corps, my education for being an electrician on helicopters, they just said they invested so much, it wasn't worth the risk, so I wasn't allowed to do MMA.
Gotcha. So how did you get into being an electrician in the Marine Corps?
That was just honestly by chance. Everybody, if you ever hear anybody about the military, they always say that the recruiter sets you up, and that's exactly what happened. I went in saying, hey, I'm going to take the test. I want to join the Marine Corps. He's like, hey, well, you have a really high score. You can do whatever MOS you want to. You tell me the job and you got it. So I listed off all these different MOSs. Like, hey, unfortunately, at this time, women can't do those. So you can't do any of those MOSs. I was like, okay, well, I don't really see what's left that I want to do then. What can I do as a woman? And he's like, oh, well, like based on what you want to do, you want to travel the world. You want to constantly be, your job is a workout, doing things in constant motion, never feet on the ground. You should be a technician on helicopters. Like, I don't know what that means. That sounds cool. I'm in. I'm like, hey, just whatever you do, please nothing with electricity. I am a klutz when it comes to electricity, and it just doesn't work well for me. And of course, like every recruiter does, that's exactly what I got. Was I was an electrician on helicopters, and was stuck with that for 5 years.
Wow. Did you learn to fly while you were working on them as well?
No, unfortunately, the only people that have that availability are officers in the Marine Corps.
Oh, okay.
Did you enjoy being a helicopter electrician when you were doing that?
Absolutely not. I loved being a Marine. I hated being an electrician. I mean, the best way that I could test out, is this working, is I just got electrocuted. And I was totally cool with it. It was fine. But that's more of what my way of figuring things out.
Yeah. Cool. So we talked a little bit about weight classes before on your first fight, but from what I hear, you currently fight at 135, correct?
That's correct.
But from what I hear, you would be more comfortable at possibly 125.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And I hear you're trying to lobby for UFC having a flyweight class. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so I naturally walk around so close to my fight weight. I'm one of the few fighters at Fight Week that I see eating every single meal, enjoying myself, and not struggling or suffering while I watch all these other fighters. And they're looking at me like, wait, how are you able to eat that? We're eating all these meals. And just because I sit low, I'm naturally a 125er. But when it came to if I could fight the best people in the world and go up a weight class, or just, kind of dominate at the one in a lower one, I wanted to go with the best. So if that meant going up in a weight class, it was worth it to me to be in the UFC and competing against the top 10, top 20 in the world.
The thing that doesn't make sense to me is that there's a 115 class, right, and a 135, but they just don't have one in the middle yet.
Yeah, and I do get it, because a lot of the 135ers, when they first opened up the 135 division, most of the 135ers are in there. We were all on the same page. It was, you want to be a part of the best thing in the world, you're going to compete at 135. So some of them moved up from 125 to 135. Some 145ers moved down to 135. So if they opened up the 125 division, I don't think there'd be very many women in the 135 division. So instead they dropped it one more weight class just to ensure that they could fill up both those weight classes.
And you don't think you could make 115, or you don't want to go through that weight cut?
No, it's something my coach and I talked about, and we do think that it would be possible. I just don't think that I'd be able to perform at that level. I could make the weight, but if it's at the cost of not giving the best performance that I can, then it's not really worth it.
That's good, because nobody wants to see, like, that's the thing. I think it takes away from the fans a little bit when you have all these fighters cutting so much weight and then they can't perform at their peak, and you don't get the fights that you should be getting when you're watching.
Yeah, exactly. And I would never want to be one of those fighters. I think at 125, I could put on a spectacular performance.
I think at 125 you would just completely dominate.
Yeah, you would kill everybody, I think.
Yeah, and I think so too. At 135, I'm one of the smallest women in that weight class because I'm not a 135er. None of them walk around at 135 a month before their fight. I'm the only person that does that.
Yeah, that's intense. That's really intense. Yeah. So do you have any upcoming fights in the UFC? Do you have any fights lined up in general?
No. Unfortunately, I'm waiting. There's been some talk about trying to set something up, and it's always just difficulty just trying to line it up. I mean, there's been a few opportunities I mentioned of going like Brazil, going to Australia or something, and one way or another just wasn't able to work out.
But you did get to fight in New York, which was amazing. How cool was that for you?
It was awesome. My mom's side of the family is all from New York. She was born and raised in New York.
Awesome.
So I was able to touch base with them. I haven't seen them since I was a child. Able to provide them with some tickets, come check out my fight, and then make history. I mean, my mom always, growing up, would talk about, okay, once I started actually fighting, and she's like, you know what, you haven't made it yet until you fight in Madison Square Garden, New York. You know, that's the shining moment. That's what I'll be my proudest is when you finally fight there. So when it happened, I was the first fight of the night. I was like, yes!
Yeah.
I finally made my mother proud. I'm fighting at MSG. It's finally happened.
That's such a huge stage, and you've been a part of a couple firsts. The first, fights at MSG, and then also, the first women's bantamweight championship that you fought against Ronda Rousey. You seem like someone who's really focused on the fight, and to go into that ring and get the job done. Is it tough when you're part of something that's even bigger than that, like the press that was around when you fought Ronda, or when the press that was around when the whole MSG circus was happening? Like, is it tough to retain your focus?
So with the Ronda one, absolutely, it was really difficult. I was just starting to pick up more responsibility at work, and trying to figure out how to do that because I just finished my degree. I got my associates, so I was trying to get back into the work lifestyle. Transitioning from being a civilian, transitioning into having a full-time job and training. And yeah, absolutely. At first, that media was really difficult just because I'm not always the most outgoing person. Like if I get to connect and know the person, I can answer any question you want. We can build a rapport. But sometimes with the media, if it's completely disconnected and they're just kind of like looking down at their paper, I'm like, I'm so socially awkward. I don't know how to do this. This is very training for me. So in definitely some aspects, I was still learning how to do media. When I was in Strike Force, we didn't really do a media week. It was just a few interviews here and there, nothing intense.
Right.
And that Ronda fight was a whole different level. Trying to, yeah, absolutely. But at the same time, that prepared me for any other fight I have in my fight career. If the media even comes close, even if it's the same level, I know how to juggle now. I know how to prepare for that. So at MSG, that was a breeze. That was nothing compared to the Ronda fight and the lack of experience going into it.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that I imagine that helped a lot getting into that Ronda fight and going through all that media where it just kind of raised the bar of tolerance for dealing with that kind of situation. But yeah, is there anybody that you would like to fight? Is there anybody that, I mean, if you had a chance, you could call out, or maybe somebody that you'd like to test your skills against?
I'm just happy to fight. And of course, the person I'm always going for is whoever has the belt.
Yeah.
So my eyes are always going to be headed in that direction. That is my ultimate fight because I want to take it home. So anybody in the interim, anybody in between, anybody that sets a path to get there, I don't care who it is, as long as it gets me in the direction to get that done.
That's pretty awesome. I feel like a little bit, I mean, do you feel like the UFC kind of rewards fighters a little bit more for like calling people out and being a little bit like having that almost like a fake attitude for for wanting to fight the next person?
Yeah, I absolutely do. And honestly, it makes sense for me because I think one of the drawbacks is that I'm a humble person, I'm quiet, and I'm socially awkward. So I'm not going to be that person. I think that your actions to speak for you. So if I go out there and I'm doing all that talking dirt and just stirring the pot, and then I go in there and I make a simple mistake, I could slip on sweat, and I lose the fight because of that mistake, then I deserve any repercussions that come and anything that anybody has to say. So I'm not the type of person. I'd rather let my actions speak for me. So if I want to get in there and I want to destroy you and break your face, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to let my fighting show that, rather than say it and then make a mistake and have a bad weight cut or anything. That to me is just karma coming back to you that you deserve. But it builds up. People want to see it. So when you do all that talking and all that build up and you make it seem like there's all this animosity and all these things, people want to see you. They want to see you fall or they want to see you succeed. So it makes everybody tune in and it builds all that up. So I absolutely get it. And it makes sense why to reward those actions.
Does it make you want to be more like that type of person? Have you taken action to maybe become more of a person that is more socially outward to calling people out and maybe making more of a show vocally?
Yeah, it's definitely something that I've tried to do and do things a little bit differently. I mean, I wasn't a big person on social media. It's just not something that I feel comfortable on, and broadcasting my life. Like if I go out and I do something awesome, I'm usually the person that has locked up my phone and totally forgotten that it's even there. I'm like, oh yeah, I just went skydiving off this rare peak and I totally forgot to take a picture. Oops. Or post anything. That's always me. I'm just lost in the moment and enjoying it. So I never stop to do that. So that's definitely a change I've tried to make lately, is just to be more of an advocate on social media, because that does speak to people and it does make them have that connection with you. But as far as actually saying anything negative towards my opponents, no, because at the end of the day, we're both professionals and martial artists. So even if I have any animosity towards them, I want to be respectful, because that's just the way I am.
It sounds almost like a samurai mentality. How much do you think that comes from growing up in Japan and growing up in the Japanese culture?
It 100% has to do with growing up in Okinawa. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, they're so respectful of everybody else and considerate towards them, and that's definitely where it comes from. I mean, when I step into the cage, I bow before I go in. I give respect to my opponent before we fight and after. No matter how dirty, no matter how much I dislike them, we both went in there and we put on performance and we performed against each other at the best possible way that we can. So I'm going to respect that.
That's awesome. So from what I've heard, you like coming in as the underdog. Do you think that's part of it? Maybe the limelight's off of you a little bit?
Yeah, I don't even think it's that. I think it's more on the idea that you want to come back. That comeback that you have when you were on the bottom and you were losing, and then you have this big victory. When you're the underdog, that's pretty much what it is every single time. Like, if there's no expectations placed on you, you're not expected to win. You go on there and you give even 80% and you win, it looks amazing, because nobody expected you to come out on top. They all expected you to lose. So for you to succeed with that, it just looks that much better. And yes. I always like being surprised. And I like when people boo against me, because it fuels me and it makes me fight that much harder.
Nice.
Is that what really fuels you, as far as going out there and fighting? You like, I mean, I feel I can definitely agree with you on the level of success is so much sweeter when the universe is against you. Do you feel that's what fuels you to each next fight, to keep on fighting the way you do, keep on grinding it out?
No, I think just the desire to be the best I can be is what really fuels me and drives me for each fight. But when I go out there and I've heard the crowd be all in support of my opponent, it just makes me want to hurt them that much more. So it makes me more violent. Let's just put it that way.
Nice.
And as opposed to being a little bit more respectful, I'm going to throw a few more sharp elbows than I normally would to my opponent, just so the crowd knows that they're not going to succeed.
Nice. We talked a little bit about when you first stepped into a gym after, you were thinking about maybe pursuing this, and you broke your nose and you loved it ever since. You've been fighting for a while now. Has your training and the way you train, has that changed from day one to the way you do it now?
Absolutely, for a lot of different reasons. When I first came in here, I was going to school full time in the morning, and then I spent my afternoons and evenings training all night. And I didn't see that training for 6 hours in a row without taking any breaks, that's just not the healthiest way to do it. I wasn't retaining muscle. My endurance was amazing. Don't get me wrong. That was fantastic. But strength-wise and technique-wise, sometimes you need to take that moment to step back and write notes and assess everything you're doing to improve. And I wasn't taking those opportunities. And I wasn't taking those rest days. And that definitely wears down on you. Also, you just start to learn different ways that, I mean, you can train for 8 hours in a day, but if you can do the same thing training for 2 hours and get the same amount out of it, it makes more sense to train smarter. So I definitely train differently than I used to. Before I never touched weights my first 2 years fighting. And then I started to realize just how important just doing basic strength and conditioning was and how much it changed my body. I look back at pictures from when I first started fighting to pictures now, and it looks like two different people.
Yeah.
And the only difference being is just I was like, oh, yeah, it turns out that lifting weights, not only is it fun, but it's good for me.
Yeah, I'm finding that now in being a little bit later, or now I'm later in my 30s, but now that I'm in my 30s trying to do jiu-jitsu, and it's like my lanky, skinny body can't hold up to all this punishment. It's a little bit nicer to have like a layer of armor muscle over that to just kind of hold up. And I can't imagine the amount of punishment that you take as far as like how heavy your training is. How often do you train now?
6 days a week.
Wow. How many times a day?
Usually 2 to 3 times a day. I'll go for a few hours in the morning, and then additional in the afternoon, sometimes mixed in there, another one in the evening, just depending on who's available for training. If we have people that come in that I can work with, then I'll add in some extra sessions.
So we also heard that you're a gamer, but with all this training, how do you find time?
No, it's not easy at all. But I mean, thankfully, I don't sleep a lot, and I'm a night owl, so I think that's really what's able to come into it. Nice.
Also, I think I heard this correctly. You have your own gym now, right?
I do. Yeah,
that's excellent.
The gym that I was actually working with, the San Diego Combat Academy. Bill was looking to retire, and he gave me an opportunity to take over the business, and I jumped on it. So now we changed the school into 10th Planet San Diego for a lot of different reasons. Because you have to go with the trends, and right now jiu-jitsu is super popular. That program has just blown up at our school. Awesome. And it's just doing so well. So we've rolled more into jiu-jitsu school, but we definitely still have everything else. So
do you train with Eddie Bravo as well?
I have trained with Eddie. I've gone up. He's in Hollywood, so it's a little bit more difficult to get up there. Right now I train with 2 of his black belts, Richie Martinez and Giovanni Martinez. Oh,
those guys are animals, and they've all competed in EBI as well as you. How cool was that? How would you compare that with competing in the UFC to competing for the Eddie Bravo International?
It's funny. It's on 2 different spectrums for me, because for some reason my nerves go through the roof when it comes to competing in jiu-jitsu, whether it be basic Naga or at EBI, it doesn't matter. My nerves are on edge. I go into a fight, nothing. I'm fine. Like, I go into that cage, and that's my home, and that's where I belong. And I think because with jiu-jitsu, it's such a foreign territory, that at least in MMA, like, I know, okay, well, I'm in this submission, and I totally brain fart, and I forgot the technique, and I know how to go to this. I'll just punch and kick my way out of it. And in jiu-jitsu, if I go in there and I completely brain dump and forget everything, you're not allowed to slam, you're not allowed to punch them, you're just stuck, and you're just sitting there hoping that at some point your brain kicks in and you remember. So I think because of that, my nerves just go through the roof, and also because it's not a cage. I'm so used to being in a cage. It's a completely different environment. I'm not bouncing off anything. There's no real way to stop anything. So it is a completely different playing ground for me.
Yeah, it's just I guess it's just unfamiliar. It's new. That makes sense. How would you feel about like competing with the new style with the combat jiu-jitsu?
That looks awesome.
Doesn't
I think
it?
that looks like a lot of fun. Yeah, it does. It looks like so. And then, it falls right into that whole category. I'd probably feel less nerves because, hey, if I get into a hurt spot, I just start hitting.
Yeah.
It's what's familiar to me. I'm safe.
That's awesome.
Oh, that's great. And you've also competed for Invicta, is that correct?
That is correct.
It's one of my most favorite fight promotions. I don't know, female fighting, female MMA is so much fun to watch. They're so aggressive, and they really look each other in the eye when they blast each other in the face. But how much did you like fighting for the Invicta Fight Corporation?
I loved fighting for Invicta. Shannon Knapp is super awesome. She was really good about taking care of her fighters, being connected with them, knowing what was going on. And the fight organization is just a completely different world. You get to be, when you go into a show and it's all women, that's a lot of fun. You get to approach things differently and talk to people. And she just made it such a comfortable environment to work in that it was hard to be able to leave it.
Yeah. Yeah. Why? I mean, I guess it would be obvious why you left Invicta to fight the UFC, obviously, because there's more viewers. Is that right?
Exactly, yeah. At the UFC, there was a lot. The Invicta at the time just didn't have the top 10 in the world. They had the best of the best.
Yeah.
And with the UFC looking to do that, my whole goal is just to fight the best. I don't care about fighting people that are ranked 200th in the world if I can fight against number 9, number 1 in the world, and that's what I'm going for. So with UFC, it just made sense to transition there to step up my game.
That's cool. How many fights do you think you have left in you?
As many as they'll give me.
That's awesome.
I honestly, I can't tell you. I don't know that I know that switch yet. That's why my coach is for to tell me when it's time.
Right.
And I definitely want to leave it on a safe level, but I'm not there yet.
Good.
That's great. So you're feeling like healthy, strong, uninjured, and awesome?
Exactly, yeah.
That's really great to hear. If people want to find you and follow you on social media, where can they look?
So I'm on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. My Twitter and my Instagram are both I am Girlrilla, and Facebook, if you just look up Liz Carmouche official, that's me.
What I gotta ask, where did Girlrilla come from? Was that you, or was that when you were training?
So that was from my coach when I was training. Yeah, it had nothing to do with me, other than jumping off the cage, picking up guys, and smashing them.
That's what I was envisioning.
That's exactly what it was. Yeah, I guess because I was just monkey up everything. Like if something was on the roof that was messed up, I'd monkey up it, and then I was climbing off and jumping off the cage and just being crazy, throwing people and stuff. And he said that one day he just looked at me and just like a gorilla had been unleashed in the cage, beating people up.
That's excellent.
That's the best.
That's really, really cool.
Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. I'm really glad we got to sit down and talk with you, and I really feel like we learned a lot by doing so. So thank you so much.
And I'm so excited to see you eventually get back in that ring and smash some people.
And thank you both for your time today. Appreciate it.
This has been Fueled by Deathcast, a Death Wish Coffee Company podcast production. Thanks for listening.